I took these Celtic knotwork pieces out of a previous book and just stuck them in. This paper isn't great for drawing on, as you saw previously. You know, it's a bit hit and miss, so I decided that sticking papers in would be a better idea, and it looks fine. I'm quite happy with it. In retrospect, I wish I had cut and folded and torn the papers to get a rough edge like this rather than a sharp edge. But, you know, I'll know that for next time, and I can always, this isn't stuck down completely, it lifts at the edges, so I can always take a nail file to it and rough up the edges a little bit just to make it look a little bit more worn and less precise. So I've laid out this page. This is one of my pages on symbolism. Obviously I've got a full page dedicated to the pentacle and pentagram. I've also got a Trinity knot and the equilateral cross, sometimes known as Brigid's cross or a Celtic cross. It's basically a sun symbol where you have a circular motif in the middle and 4 equilateral arms. I drew them in this brown, actually it's called Sepia Pilot G Tec C4, which is the same as a Coleto refill. I love these pens for drawing because you can use them both as just drawing implements, or you can use them with a little bit of watercolour wash. But today I'm going to combine it with a little bit of pencil because this paper is absolutely fabulous for drawing in pencil on, so I think it's going to work really well. Now this is a very reddish brown, and you can see on this version I had already coloured this in. Now I did this when I did the original version. Those of you who were in my original Eve to Eve class many years ago will recognise this as one of the symbols we actually drew in Eve to Eve. And you know, I put in these little shadows at the time to indicate where the lines crisscrossed because I didn't want it to just be flat and static, and as you can see it looks a lot better than this does. However, since then I've decided that I want to add a little bit more to it since I'm transferring it into a new book, and I've just been playing here in this corner with a couple of coloured pencils, and strangely this particular brown is a very reddish brown. It's a very warm brown, and Tuscan Red sorry, that grumbling you can hear in the background is Scooby-Doo. He's having a grumble. Are you having a grumble, Scooby-Doo? He's having a grumble. It's not sunny today, so he doesn't like it. As I was saying, Tuscan Red in Prismacolour, which is the PC 937, actually matches this brown almost perfectly. And I've also got a darker brown. I've got the Prismacolour Dark Umber, which is PC 947, and I've got a kind of medium blending brown, which is the Burnt Sienna 9201283, and that's from the Polychromos Faber Castell range. I know somebody will ask, no, I don't have any particular preference on Prismacolour versus Faber Castell per se. The Prismacolours are extremely good for large areas of colour and blending, because you can get really soft long points on them, and you can use them sideways and they blend beautifully. They are wax-based pencils. Faber Castell Polychromos are oil-based pencils. They're a lot harder in the centre. That means they keep their point very well, so they're a lot better for detail work. So I tend to use these for large areas of colour or an initial layer of colour, and these for kind of blending the two together and adding more details afterwards. And because these are oil based, there's not really any limit to how many layers you can put down, whereas with the wax pencils eventually you'll get to a point where you can't layer any more colour on, and you'll need to use a workable fixative to be able to continue. Whereas with the Faber Castells you can pretty much layer to your heart's content. But no, there's not really any there is a difference between the two, but as far as just general colouring, unless you're at a professional artist level, I wouldn't worry too much about the differences or which one's going to be best. If you get intensely irritated by pencils that don't keep their point, or pencils that break a lot, then I wouldn't get the Prismacolours. You do have to have a specialist sharpener, and you do have to have, as I've mentioned before, a large sharpener. A lot of people think that this is for small pencils and this is for large pencils. It's not. This is for graphite pencils and this is for colour pencils. Okay, the large end is for colour pencils. So you'll get a much finer tip. You can see I've got a very, very fine tip on all my pencils here because I use the large end. So it's a very sharp point, but it's a very shallow cut, whereas with a graphite pencil, you've got a much longer lead. So yeah, like I say, the Faber-Castells keep their points better because they're much, much harder, and I really like that, but I'm good at blending. If you find it very, very difficult to blend, then you want to go with the Prismacolours because they do the job for you, honestly. They are dreamy to use. Anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing a bit better. I've already started in this corner, and literally all I'm doing at the moment is extending this dark brown in certain areas. So I'll do a couple of those at normal speed and then I'll speed up just to get through it to the next colour. But first I'll put the lid on my pen so it doesn't dry out. And you'll notice that I'm not colouring in a whole section. I'm kind of fading it out as I go, and I won't worry about keeping them too even or anything like that. It'll all come out in the wash. And I'm going to have to move my book around as I do this, I think, because I'm so close to the beginning of the book here. So I'm working on a much thicker surface on this side than this side, which means my hand is kind of raised at an awkward angle. So there's going to be some spinning round with the page as well, but I'll do my best to keep it all on camera. Right, I think we can agree that that's a little bit better. Oh, I've missed one there. That's looking a little bit better. It's less harsh now. What I'm going to do now is to find a colour that goes in between the two just to blend them together. Now, a lot of people, when I show these videos before, are all like, whoa, how do you ever know what colour to use? It's really simple. You do colour swatches. So there's no magic formula for it. You get your colour pencils out, a bit of scrap paper, and you work out what you're going to need. So there's my pen. I'll just let that, I'll just block that a second to get it to dry. Here is my Tuscan Red over the top, which, as you can see, is exactly the same colour almost. And I'm going to do this on both sides because I've got two pencils here that may do. So I'll be able to test it on both edges. Notice too when I'm colouring I don't scribble. I don't colour like this, backwards and forwards like you would with a pen with a graphite. I exaggerated, I do that. That's how I'm getting this feathered line at one end where it fades out to nothing. So let's try with these two pencils. I suspect this is going to be the one because this is burnt sienna, which is a warm colour. All I want to do is blend out that harsh line in the middle there. And again, I'm using the same technique. It's perhaps not quite dark enough. This is a much darker one. This is the dark umber. Let me see. I think I like the sienna better, but I may have to do a little bit more juggling with this one as well. I may have to make this a little bit darker to get it to blend properly. So let's just see. Do a little bit there. And then just on this line, come back in and do a little bit more blending. There we go, that's going to work. So let me zoom in again, show you what I'm actually doing there. So already I've got the block of pen and I've got the Tuscan Red. I'm now using burnt sienna to go over that join and blend it into that faded section. And now I'm going to just go back in with the Tuscan Red and I'm just going to pick up from the pen forward just a little bit just to darken that section. And what's happening is that before we just had the pen to pencil. So really nothing I did was going to make that any less of a join. But now I've mixed two pencils together and two tones, so I've got a medium tone as well as a dark tone and a much darker tone. I can now layer this tone over the top and you get a much more seamless blend than you do with just the two on their own. So let me show you that again. So this one, there it is with just the burnt umber, so you can actually see the stripe of variation. Pen, layers, Tuscan Red. I'm just going to extend the Tuscan Red just a little bit. And then what I'm coming in here and just blending that line into the umber just to make it less noticeable basically. Okay, done all of that, and I'm really pleased with that. I think it looks much better than it did before. It's really given it a sense of depth. At some point I'm going to do something with the outside. I'm not quite sure. Oh, actually, I've just had an idea. I think what I might do, I'm not going to use the pen for this. I think I'll use pencil. Just add a little bit of a shadow on each point, just to give it a little sense of depth. So basically the same principle, but I'm working both sides now. So I've put red in the middle, Tuscan Red in the middle, I'm putting burnt sienna, and then I'm going back in with the Tuscan Red to darken that central section. Yes, I like that. That draws attention to the point then. So I'll just do that again with this one. So again, a section of red blended outwards. The burnt sienna over the top and blended outwards a little bit further. And then back in with the burnt sienna into the centre to darken up this section just in the middle here. So it's kind of given a not really a metallic effect, but it kind of looks like there's shiny bits and there's shadowed bits, and I like that. I may even go a little bit darker here. To get it to match the pentacle, yeah, pentagram, yeah, I like that. So this is a very, very simple shadowing technique you can use that will, you know, if you're just doing a basic drawing, it'll give you some depth to it, and I don't know. To me, I just think it looks better. It's not about being artistic or whatever. It's about doing something as well as you can. And to me, just slapping this down is not doing something as well as I can, because I can draw and I can colour, and you know, I should be using some of those gifts I've got in my book of shadows, I think. You know, maybe for you that's, you know, you'd much rather just be working in black and white, or, you know, something like that. That's fine, go for it. But if you do want to, you know, jazz things up a little bit, make it a bit more interesting to look at, a little bit more artistic, this is a great way of doing it. It's a nice simple technique, and you don't need fancy pencils to do it either. I did show you which fancy pencils I'm using to begin with, but you know, the trick with any pencils is just go lightly, you can always add more. And you can get the same effect with just a basic Crayola brand if you want to, you know. You should be able to do this with just about any series of browns. It helps if you understand your colour wheel and you know how to group warm and cool browns together. But it's not essential. You can do it by eye, you know, just use your colour swatches like this, put your browns together, line them up and see which ones work best together. You might be surprised. Sometimes the one that the rules say should work the best isn't the best one for the look that you want. So that's where your colour swatches come in. There, I like that. I think that really sets it off, kind of looks like a finished piece now. So I'm going to continue that with the other bits and pieces. I may as well do that on camera, I suppose, but I'll speed it up so you don't have to sit through hours of me colouring. I find it very meditative, but you know, not everybody does. And if you need to, you know, see the technique again, then you get to see it right from the beginning, because I'm going to go in with the pen on this one. So pen first, and with each one on the Celtic knots, everywhere a knot goes over, underneath I put a shadow. So on either side of an over. And I'm using exactly the same technique with my pen. Doing exactly the same thing. Starting dark where the shadow is going to be heaviest and tapering off. Don't worry about getting it too even, because as you can see from here, it just makes it blend with the pencil better if it's not absolutely precise. You know, you don't want heavy dark sections particularly, but do try and keep all your areas roughly the same size. Not exactly, don't have to be exact, because obviously light will catch on different areas of an object. If you want it to look 3D, it will catch on different areas of an object in different ways. But you don't want like all of this bit coloured in and none of that bit. That would look ridiculous. So try and keep it roughly the same, but don't get too precious about it.